Well, hello everyone. I am so excited because if you are watching this, we have made it to week 4. I can't believe it. We did 4 videos. Hopefully you've been able to see all of them. Hopefully they have gotten increasingly better because I have figured out how to do everything. And hopefully you are focused, even if it's a little iffy as far as my own capabilities and technological know-how, you have still been able to get some great content. And I think that that is what is really important. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back and give myself some applause, and I'll be right back. When you are able to do something, there are still 11 more months in the year, but we are moving right along. Today, what I wanted to talk about is a couple of different things. One is pantser writing as opposed to being a plotter. And the only reason I'm going to talk about that is because I want the videos to be beneficial for both groups of people, whether you're a pantser or a plotter, and whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. First of all, pantser and plotter refers to and how they write. So if you are a pantser, that just simply means you write by the seat of your pants. And I am definitely a pantser. If you are a plotter, that means you take time out to do an outline, whether you use an Excel spreadsheet, whether you use some kind of mapping tool, whether you try to go in order and think about all the scenes and what's going to happen next and where they happen, those will be really important. While it doesn't seem like it's applicable to nonfiction writing, which is what we're largely talking about, I think it is can be applied because I think it is really just a way for you to understand who you are and what type of approach you want to make to your getting the words down, getting the chapters done, getting the writing done. First, I'll overview what the differences are and why they're both good and bad. And then I'll talk about how you can use that to apply. And I'll also talk about another method as far as, what are you going to write? How are you going to get it down? What do you need to do? And go over those things. So excuse me while I adjust my screen and make sure that you can see what it is I wanted to share with you. And this all comes from my class on writing the novel. It's an 8-week course that is available self-paced and electronically with 8 workbooks and 8 sessions via YouTube. And those will be in the description box if you'd like to see about getting further information on writing a novel. But in this 52-week challenge, we are writing a nonfiction book. And so I'm just overviewing them just so whoever is watching can use them. So some of the pros for being a pantser is that you feel like you have the freedom to do your novel and take it in any direction, or your nonfiction book. So when I say novel, I'm talking about novel or a nonfiction book. And this can apply, I believe, to nonfiction also. But you can take it and you don't have the constraints. There's a lot of flexibility to change any component at any time. And really, people think that just because you're not a pantser that you can't change, but you really can. It's just that you may, with an outline, you may feel more beholden to doing it in order in the way that you wrote the outline, as opposed to being more free and going on a tangent, which can sometimes be great. There's good things that come out of going on a tangent. And then sometimes you can get way far off course and actually get lost. Some of the cons for being a pantser is that you don't have a plan. You're basically on a course of action without a roadmap, which I beg to differ. Being a certified pantser is that I know what has to happen in the stories in my novels, and in fiction writing for romance, things have to end happily, obviously. And it just means, how are we going to get there? I still have a set thing to occur as far as the couple getting together, either being happily ever after or happy for now. And that's great. It doesn't really matter how I get there so long as I do. And obviously, most romances have a point of where they break up for a little while, or there's some kind of fight or some kind of misunderstanding, and they are apart for a little bit. And that's kind of like the all is lost moment, the dark moment. And then something has to happen to make them resolve their issues and then get back together. It wouldn't be a romance if they didn't end up together in the end. And if one of them died, it would be a tragedy. So the cons of being a pantser is that you don't feel like you have a plan or a roadmap. You don't know where you're going. You end up all over the place. And when the project gets frustrating, you'll end up abandoning it. I would say that's more so for new writers and people who aren't committed to whatever stories. I'm in the middle of a 4-book series, and as such, I know I have to get the rest of the books done. I know it's about the same family, and actually have another 3-book series in the pipeline after I'm done with these. Say that, I don't have a sense of direction, or I don't know where I'm going. That's kind of, a lot of BS, because if you're committed to writing and you are an indie author, then you have a timeline, however self-imposed it is, to release books and to release your stories on the course of action that you've set. You have to be careful in saying that you're going to abandon things, not if you're on your own deadline. And even writers who have contracts also are on deadlines and have to submit books. So being a pantser is still okay when it comes to those kinds of things, and be careful of people deterring you from one way or the other just because of what the status quo or what has been historically true for some other pantsers of other types. Will I ever put my project down for a little bit? Of course, maybe for a few days. Maybe I'll work on something else that is more exciting and resonating with me. But the reality is, I don't have a plot outline for those stories either. I just work on them, but I do try to remain in one story, get it done, and get it off to the editor before going to the next one. Will I take off just for a period of time? I'm saying no more than a week to work on something that I'm more excited about, just because I may have been working on the other story forever. Sure, that happens no matter what. If you're a pantser, doesn't mean you can't take a break. Even plotters take breaks, and that is important. Some of the issues, my little girl here, I don't know who this is. This is stock photography. This is not me as a child, but one of the things that plotters have is they have taken the time to outline, and sometimes the writing can be completed faster. I have only one incidence of being a plotter, simply that I did plot a story by writing 1 through 30 on a 8.5 by 11 computer page and in Word. And I summed up each chapter with a little sentence. So for every chapter, all 30 chapters, and I don't know if it's going to be 30 or 40 or what have you, or even 25, but I went to 30 and I summed up what happened. I was able to write that story very quickly, but I wasn't able to finish. I needed to change course. I printed out the story, and it's still sitting on one of my desks here in the office, waiting to be revisited. I believe that is because I tried to stuff my pantser self into a plotter body, and it just doesn't work. And that's one of the reasons I'm even overviewing these two differences, is because for you to get going on whatever system, whatever mechanism resonates with you, rather than try to operate in a way that you don't like, or that you'll eventually find you don't like and have wasted so much time trying to do that. So the cons, there's sometimes perceived a smoother process of writing when you are a plotter, less interruption, less time thinking about which way to go with the novel, and you may feel calmer throughout being a plotter and taking the time to outline. The cons are that you can feel confined. You may feel like you can't go anywhere else other than what you've put on the paper as far as your outline says. If your outline says you have to do this, and this is what the scene entailed, and who's there, and where it happens, your brain may be like, and your body may be like, this is what you said that you wanted to do, just do that. So that can feel confining. If you become stuck, or you want to change something, you will have to change the entire outline or go back and change the entire thing from chapter one in order to make the story fit. And then you can feel that plotting stifles the creative process, which I believe that it does. There is some divine, I feel, when I'm personally writing, and other people have also said they feel, other writers, friends, but it's really just a personal thing. By the time, I feel like if I spent maybe 3 hours taking the time to plot out a full book, that is time that I could have written 20,000 words or more or less, because I wasted time doing that. There's nothing wrong with either method, and I think that is the most important thing. Whatever you are, embrace it. I was glad that I took that little bit of time to see if I could be a plotter, but I haven't had any desire whatsoever to really try to understand more about plotting and outlining, and except when it came to writing a nonfiction book. And so that is the thing that I'm telling you, is that when you think about nonfiction, you don't want to end up in the weeds. You have very, very specific things that you want to say and things that you want to convey. And so it will be important for you to have at least some kind of cohesive theme running throughout. Even if you are a pantser or plotter, you should be able to apply some of those principles to your nonfiction book. What did help me in writing my nonfiction book was simply that I wrote about things and then I began to group them into different pockets and different chapters so that I could write a full chapter. What I would like people to do as they think about their nonfiction book and what the subject matter is going to be is to try to think in big, broad terms and then begin to narrow down what each of those things mean. So you should know who your reader is going to be, who are you writing for, and what kinds of things they are desiring and what kinds of things they want to know. This outline, or this really just the chapter titles, is from my nonfiction book called Pack Light, Thoughts for the Journey. And it was really a book that I was like, pack light, because you want to shed light on certain situations and things that you've been through. And so it became this little anecdotal advice book that really came to me probably in about 6 months. I just wrote it mostly at night, and it's a very short book. It's less than 100 pages, and even probably 15 to 25% of those pages are lines. I'm talking about the print book is really short. So there are 7 stories in it about each something that we've all been through and all experienced. And rather than tell you about each of these, obviously you can get the book. That's not my point. What I want you to do is use the chapter titles to see if you can think about what I mean just by the chapter titles alone. So if you had to think about Queen Gimp, chapter 1, what does that entail? What does that mean? If you had to sum up your own chapter for your own book, what would you title it first? And then begin to write towards that title of it. That alter but don't let go is simply about some of the dreams that you may have and the aspirations that you have, and future self that you want to be, that you may, as you begin to see and get closer to whatever the dream is, or if the dream doesn't work, you may have to tweak it a little bit, but never to let go of it. That is as simple as it can be. It's just to alter it, but don't let it go. It might be sad at first to alter something because you had in mind what you saw. You had a picturesque view of what it was going to be. But then as you got closer and closer, it's like, this is not really what I wanted. It's a version of it, but it's not as great and glamorous. And that's just the way it is sometimes, that whatever you perceived is not the actual thing. And so you have to still work with that. Is it still kind of what you want? And can it be refined and tweaked till you eventually get there? But at the first onset, it's not what you had in mind. So alter it, but don't let it go. I would ask you for the do-over, the network, fight the bullies. Some of these are very simple to understand. And some of them are more complex, like the invitation, or the network. What do those really mean? And so, if I'm talking about anecdotal advice for life's journey, what are these things saying, and what do average people like you and I encounter that these titles could apply to? And then come up with maybe 10 to 12, this book is 7 chapters, of your own, and see what you come up with. The next thing is that when you are writing nonfiction, while fiction has an implied audience, obviously I write romance, that implies, that I'm talking to someone who likes to read, mostly women, probably older, educated women, career professionals, stay-at-home moms, but also I'm writing Black romance, so that's African Americans and really people of color who want to see themselves on the page of the stories that I write. And after you identify your reader for your nonfiction book that you're going to write, you want to think about keywords and any things that kind of help you drill down on what the story is, what it's about, and what you have to say. So, what are some of the tags or the specific niches that you can drill down on to find out more about your reader? And then, really, I believe, even without identifying your reader and even without keywords and drilling down on who it's for, it's really about the subject matter that you feel comfortable tackling, that you may need to research, but you at least have a good grasp on what you need to know. I have used this book that I'm writing for this year about leaving your career. So obviously, I want to know more about employment. I want to know more about preparing and exit strategies. You're going to leave and do a startup, or does that mean you're going to leave and be, comfortable and fully retired and just live off the investments that you've made? So I will have to dig deeper on those subjects in order to continue writing this book, but also about getting your ducks in a row as far as what are the things and the steps that you need to take in order to secure your financial future, in order to move on. And also about leaving a situation of employment with a good taste in everybody's mouth and not burning any bridges in case you need to come back. About getting contacts of different folks before you just up and leave. And the whole point of the book was a more systemic approach to the jump. So not just jumping without a net or a parachute, to help you get down safely and without any injury and with everything intact, but also because what if the thing that you're jumping to doesn't work out? What is plan B? And what if you need to kind of crawl back to that same thing or find new employment, for whatever reason? But these are things that I'm thinking about, and I would expect the audience that I'm going to be writing to is also thinking about as they leave. Next, after identifying your reader and really identifying the subject matter and what you know and versus what you still need to research and talk about, you probably should think about a tentative title. Sometimes a title can really help solidify this idea that's kind of all over the place in your head. Think about the title. Something that I have always done that is so fun to me is to make a mock-up book cover that I have made in the past. For all the books, not all of them, but for about 2 or 3 books that I have written, I have usually used Word document, or now that I have Canva, it's even more fun. I have used something and it just gets me really excited about seeing this book through to the end. I may not have had the actual cover for the book, so I've used Word or used some clip art in order to make my own fake cover. And then I would wrap one of my other books, or just wrap any random book before I had books, and put tape on it, print out the paper, and wrap it around and say, this is my book. Yes, the content, the cover and stuff wasn't actually my book, but it was the imagery and the expectation that this was a book that I was going to be making and using. And I have actually done that for this book, and it really just came to me the other day. I was so excited. I put everything down because I was thinking about it. I was in Canva doing something else for another project, And I'm going to show that in just a little while. I will work on getting it up for you. But this may not be, and it's important to note that this might not be the final cover. But when I was doing it, it just kind of, God gave it to me, and it was just so exciting. And I was like, wow, this is it. I should use this. Now, I have to research what else similar covers are like that and where they're at, because this cover has rubber duckies on it, and I'll need to pay for the art to use that. And I'll need to make sure that the fonts and the color scheme are in line with other books that are about similar topics. So you don't ever want your book to look like a mismatch of books. It's okay to be unique and to be different, but you still want that, that look at other books that are similar, and make sure that your book cover and the format and even the length doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. People, when they're reading self-help books, when they're reading books that are nonfiction, especially business books and business instruction books, they want to really hit it and quit it. They want anecdotal advice, information, concrete things, commentary, and they may want some bullet points at the end of each chapter, almost like a summary. So if they did skim, I talked about skimming things in our first video. If they put it down, they pick it up. It's almost like a reference. You want people to be able to reference it, go to it, get the information they're seeking, which should be categorized, and the chapters should be helpful to them, whatever you've titled it, and be able to find information quickly, say, oh, I got this. Okay, let me go do this next step. And so having that tentative title and that book cover really can motivate you. And it's okay if all of these things change. In fact, I probably will change the book cover now that I'm showing it to everybody, and the book release is still a year off. But it's still something to motivate you and excite you. And you're going to need that. You're going to really need to have that as you work through it. And that will be something very, very important for you to think about. So just to recap, we've talked about identifying your reader, and who is that going to be? What kind of people would read a book about Before the Jump? People that are either been in a career a long time, they may be middle-aged, people that feeling kind of stuck in a certain employment situation and want to exit but haven't really done anything in order to prepare for that, and people who could probably jump but want to make sure they have everything that they need just in case they have things that they haven't thought about. Most people just go for it and they don't think about stuff. But again, people can't afford to do that. I am one of them. I can't afford to do that right now. I don't really want to do that because I really enjoy what I'm doing, but it has always it has always been a thought for me as a writer. When is the opportunity? When is the time to go for your writing full time? And it's more than just income. Yes, you could go, but sometimes, you need that. Sometimes doing different things has been kind of a feed into the writing. And if you take that away, you'll have to look for other things in other places, and you don't want to spread yourself so thin in other volunteer things that you are defeating the purpose. And you also want a cushion and want a fallback plan in case it doesn't work out. So these are all things that people have to think about as they move forward, whatever they're going to do. It doesn't matter. It matters about the plan and the preparation that you have made in order to do that. A couple more things, and this goes back to the mind map information that I shared in other week videos, and that is maybe doing a brain dump. Whatever the subject matter is going to be, whatever topic you're going to do, you want to do a brain dump or the mind map, which is fine. You can do either of those just to kind of cluster the ideas. And you also want to ask questions. When I do the brain dump for what I want to know about getting my ducks in a row, about leaving corporate America and doing my own thing, I want to know how much income do I really need every month in order to sustain myself? What kind of retirement plan would I have for someone who's self-employed? What kind of legacy or papers do I need? Power of attorney, you need all this stuff. Do you want someone to be able to publish things posthumously and then, make all the money in the world from it and then have it kind of ripped apart when it really doesn't matter because you're dead, but you can still put in place what you'd like to have happen. It won't always happen that way regardless because there'll be things that people can do to contest them, but at least have it in writing what you want to do. What about your care? What about your estate? All of these things. What about any people that you have in your life as far as if you're going to jump, do you have children? What's going to happen to them if they're under 18? And what do you want them to know if they're over 18? What do you want them to do with everything? So it's more than just, it's the same as end of life planning, but it's a little more curated and a little more in depth because you are leaving something and you don't necessarily know what your next step is. For aspirations and dreams that you might have, you want to pursue them, but you have to get rid of this other thing. And you also want to do that gracefully. When you're organizing your ideas after the brain dump, go and search some of the book niches on Amazon and other bookseller sites to see what are the other topics. You'll need all those buzzwords. When I looked for covers that had ducks on it, I got a lot of gardening and feeding the ducks and caring for ducks, a larger search just to see, but a lot of business books, a lot of things about startups, some of the things that didn't really have ducks on them. And that was good for me in a sense. If I was going to create a cover that had this on it about getting your ducks in a row, getting organized. And then if I show this cover to you and I want to use something else, what other things do people use? A lot of writing books have typewriters and pencils and, pen cups on the front of them and the brain, and then, a lot of colorful things for creativity books. All of those things will be important in coming together with this. Now, it may seem like a lot of this is putting the cart before the horse, but remember, these are motivational tactics to help sustain you and keep you going through the entire thing. So let's take a moment to look at the cover that I created just using Canva. It's not perfect and it's not meant to be. It is a motivational placeholder until we get going further. And you can also use people on Fiverr or any other graphic designers, and you can give them the cover that you created in Word or what have you, and they can enhance it and make it that much better. This is the cover that I have created in Canva. I did 2 of them where I can see, and one has kind of the thing that they put across your mouth when you're saying a bad word. And I'm not sure if I'm ready to do that. I mentioned in another video that we seem to be in a place where we drop a lot of, F-bombs on the cover and even on the first page, like it's time for you to get your life together. And so there's this kind of shocking thing that you're supposed to be shocked into action, and I'm just not about that. So I'm still deciding, but I was like, what would it look like if it did have a duck on it that had this kind of, I'm going to move this over so you can see that did have this thing across his mouth. So this implies the ducks are in a row. You can see this has the, and I would probably have a graphic designer enhance this so that it looks like the red. It's supposed to be ducks in a row, and then they're kind of falling off, if you will, of an assembly line. You could also interpret that as like the rat race or just the conformity that happens sometimes when you work for other people, when you're not shining in your own business and doing your own thing. So there's a lot of symbolism here, and it says the tagline or the subtopic is a more systematic approach to your dream life so you don't cook your goose. I think I like this one the best. And I also put a black circle over the duck's mouth, kind of like they're saying, oh my goodness, like I'm falling or I'm, being kicked off or jumping or deciding to leave this little pie train of people all doing the same thing, nobody being different. Even if you get kicked off, maybe you do get kicked off sometimes, and you still should have your ducks in a row so that you can recover from that. It'll be important to think about something, think about what you want things to look like. And I was just so excited about that cover and, how it looks. And it's only the front. That's all I need. That's all I need to print out. And I'll show you next month, I'll actually be binding. What I'm going to do to use it to motivate me is I'm going to have it bound with just some loose leaf paper and maybe a clear plastic cover on it. And you can do that at Office Depot or Staples or any office supply store or even any copy shop, which is sometimes cheaper if you use a local printer type of place. Their prices are often lower. So I will show that probably on my Instagram and flip through that. But I'm going to be using that to actually write on it, write inside of it, have a lot of blank loose leaf paper in there, maybe 8.5 by 11, and just have it coil bound and just use it and carry it around. We are going to be moving into February and I am excited. We are going to keep going, but don't forget to let me know what you want to hear about writing the nonfiction book. We have, like I said, 11 more months together and we are moving right along. You should have a title. You should know kind of what you're going to write about, at least some subject matter. If you haven't done the brain dump and you haven't done the mind map, take time to do those things and you'll never know what emerges. You have no idea. So just try it and see how it goes. Just think about what you are writing or what you want to write constantly. Try to take a little notepad, a little book, go out to, they're having a lot of sales right now after Christmas to get rid of stuff, some of the inventory. Go to Barnes and Noble and get you a new something to motivate you, a new pen, and go down on your ideas and what you want to write about and what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say to people? I'm trying to say in Before the Jump that there is order and there is a systematic way into, you know, going into your next, whatever next career, next life stage that you are doing, and that it is a way to have peace of mind about doing it. That's the most important thing. Peace of mind, no stress. Stress causes me to have serious complications and flare-ups and inflammation for my chronic condition, and I do not need any of that. I need peace of mind, and I need to make steady earning, and I need to be well in order to come up with the ideas. And so that is what really resonated with me. One other thing I wanted to mention just about identifying your reader and identifying some of the niche. I have thought about breaking the book up into 2 parts. So in the back would be things for people with disabilities to consider, because that is also part of my target audience, is that you don't have mobility, you don't have the financial wherewithal, you need, you know, to be cognizant of what you can handle. And so, but in order to make the book universal, and if I wanted to sell it, because I'm actually thinking about writing a proposal for such a book, if I wanted to do that, I would have to sell it as kind of a universal book for more people. And then disability, yes, though there are 60 million Americans that identify as having some kind of chronic condition or physical or mental health or intellectual disability, that's a lot of people. That's all I need really to buy the book. If all of them bought it, but not all of them are at that stage. In order to make the book more universal, would the main section be for everyone, as far as, you know, people in that category ready to jump, but not sure quite where to go, where to start, what to do. And then maybe a page or so to say what to do, or at least alter this advice I'm giving. If you have a disability, here are some extra considerations that you want to make. So that's one way to do it. Keep it in the same book, or in the back, or at the end of each chapter, or, you know, a whole other smaller subset of another book. So I'll be thinking about those things. I am ready to write chapter 1. I've had some ideas rolling around in my head. And I also have blog posts. Some of that I mentioned in the blog post is going to be taken away from that and using it. So the first things that are easy about the first parts of the book is that who is this intended for? You use this book, some of just the very bare bones before you get to the actual content of who's it for, why did I decide to write this, why am I in this stage, and why am I contemplating this next move. And so I may talk about environmental influences that are going on right now. I may talk about my own chronic stuff that I'll be mentioning, and then just may talk about actual work situations that cause you to have the feelings that you have and know that it might be time to make a change. And but used in a way that people can identify with and say, oh, I feel that way. Oh, I think about that too. Oh, let me see what she's talking about so I can make my own plan. So be sure to think about that. Think about your book in terms of that way. And I hope these tips have been beneficial to you. I will see you next month, and I can't wait. Take care.